I welcome you to the Church of Perpetual Life, and would like to also welcome everyone who's joining us online. Many people are joining us there through our live streaming today. Welcome to the event as well. We'd like to ask you to check out our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook, where you can find out more information about our church. And here at the Church of Perpetual Life, we follow the ideas and ideals of Nikolai Fedorovich Fedorov's beliefs that stem from the possibility of diverting human energies away from war and dissension towards measures of protecting mankind against natural disasters like floods and droughts and earthquakes, and to transform nature from a temporary enemy into an eternal friend. And since death is a natural phenomenon, it too could and should be overcome by knowledge and action. After the main sermon today, we are very happy to have an impressive presentation that will show how close we are, or we may be, to reversing the aging process and discovering ways to achieve indefinitely extended lifespans. That will come after our primary sermon. Our speaker today is a lawyer, author, and entrepreneur. Ms. Rothblatt graduated from UCLA with a combined law and MBA degree and began work in Washington, D.C., first in the field of communication satellite law and eventually in life sciences projects like the Human Genome Project. She is currently the founder and CEO of United Therapeutics Corporations and holds the distinction of being the highest paid female executive in the United States. She is the creator of GeoStar and Sirius Satellite Radio. She's also the author of the book Virtually Human, The Promise and Peril of Digital Immortality, and we have copies of those available for you after the sermons today. She's a graduate from the UCLA School of Law, UCLA Anderson School of Management and Barts, and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry. She has represented the television broadcast industry before the Federal Communications Commission, studied astronomy at the University of Maryland, and has been retained by NASA and the National Academy of Sciences. Ms. Rothblatt is responsible for launching several communication satellite companies, including the first nationwide vehicle location system, GeoStar, the first private international spacecom project, PanAmSat, the first global satellite radio network, World Space, and the first non-geostationary satellite-to-car broadcasting system, Sirius Satellite Radio. As an attorney, entrepreneur, Ms. Rothblatt was responsible for leading the effort to obtain worldwide approval via new international treaties. She has also led the International Bar Association's biopolitical project to develop a draft Universal Declaration on Human Genome and Human Rights for the United Nations. She was motivated in the late 1990s by her daughter being diagnosed with life-threatening pulmonary hypertension and entered the world of life sciences by first creating the PPH Cure Foundation and later founding a medical biotechnology company, which is United Therapeutics. She's appeared on CNBC, The Colbert Report, Howard Stern, and numerous magazines, including just recently on the cover of New York, I believe just last month. So today we are honored to have her here to tell us about the Terrasem movement that she created a decade ago. So let's please give a warm, perpetual life welcome to Ms. Martine Rothblatt.
I'd like to meet the person that you were talking about, like all five of them or something. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. It's really not all as complicated as it sounds. Just here with my soulmate, being at Aspen, and together we're just doing the best we can to do our part to create a better and happier life for everybody. And we're really excited to be here at the Church of Perpetual Life. Bean and I are huge fans of Bill Falloon and everything that he has done to create an ability for there to be joyful immortality for everybody. And we were so excited when he formed the Church of Perpetual Life together with all of you in the congregation. And even though we are also in Florida, it does take a few hours to get down here from where we live up in Melbourne and where the TerraSem movement, Transreligion, is headquartered. So we've been wanting for quite a while to be here at the services, and they're very, very happy we are here. Perhaps some of you may have been in attendance when some of our other TerraSem joiners were present, such as Jason Zhu, I know was here not too long ago. So I didn't really know exactly what to expect today, and I certainly don't know exactly what are the interests of everybody in the online audience. But I think that the beliefs of Bina and I are really summed up by the church's name and by the church's logo. Perpetual life, that's what we believe in. That's our belief, and I don't think you could say it any more simply and directly than the Church of Perpetual Life. I can say that, you know, we are honored and that we are proud to attest, worship, follow, all of those kind of be devoted to the Church of Perpetual Life. So thank you so much for creating this. And then to see the beloved logo of, I'm not sure if this is unique to this particular church or shared together with Alcor, but it looks to me like the Alcor logo. I love that logo. Bina and I have been signed up with Alcor for well over a decade now. Recently this year, the first of our offspring also signed up with Alcor, which is really exciting because we love being with her right now, and so now we can like look forward to being with her for centuries and centuries, millennia to come. Super awesome to have a church founded specifically for Alcor. I mean, I think that's pretty much as good as it gets. What I'd like to talk about today, this being a church and it being under the rubric of religion, and usually, you know, when you think of religion and church, you kind of think of, you know, some flavor or another of Christianity. If it's Islam, you kind of think of a mosque. If it's Hindu, you kind of think of a temple. If it's Jewish, you kind of think of a synagogue. And at least to me, growing up in the States, if it's a church, you think of, you know, some version or flavor or another of Christianity. And I had the pleasure over the past several weeks to both get deep into some of the writings of a paleontologist Jesuit named Pierre Teilhard du Chardin, and also to meet with an outstanding biologist. I'm not exactly sure if she's a Jesuit, because I'm not exactly sure what the gender thing is on the Jesuits, but she's like, you know, a female Jesuit, if that's you know, if that's part of the story there, and a biologist and a professor of religion at Georgetown University named Ilya. And she has written an incredible book on the, edited a book of essays on the life of Teilhard. And I was able to have lunch with her, and we got deep into a discussion of a number of these things. She had inherited or acquired somehow a bunch of Teilhard's papers, which were never translated and were in their original form. And we are now in the process of digitizing all of those and translating all of those. So I'm pretty deep into the Teilhard project. I call it a trans-religious experience of Christianity because Teilhard was a Christian and was proud to be a Christian. Also realize that you're a Christian if you live an ethical way of life. Whether you're a believer or not believer, you are a Christian if you're leading an ethical way of life. So it's a really beautiful definition of Christianity. Well, let me start by talking about what is TerraSem. So TerraSem is a religious organization. It believes in bringing technology, modern technology, and evolving, advancing technology into all the different religions and spiritualities. In fact, it transcends all religions, and we think of TerraSem as like the forest, and all the religions are the trees inside the forest. It is self-organizing, meaning we have what we call TerraSem groups or TerraSem collectives, organize themselves in different places. There's one organized in Washington, in Vermont, in Canada, Florida, San Francisco, different places. People are self-organizing terrorism organizations. And we basically are devoted to three things: diversity, unity, and joyful immortality. So that's what terrorism is all about. Now in terrorism, we have 4 basic tenets. And we have these on giant billboards in each of our terrorism. We call them ashrams. And in each of our terrorism ashrams, we have these giant boards. There are 4 basic tenets. Life is purposeful. Death is optional. God is technological. And love is essential. Now, when some people see these, they say, life is purposeful. Okay, I kind of get that. Death is optional. You know what? Of course, to this group, there's not going to be any what there. You know, obviously, death is optional. But to the lay public that's not so familiar with transhumanism and immortalism, that's a bit of a surprising concept. However, as I'll show in a moment, that Teilhard was already there and actually laid out how this is very consistent with all mainstream religions and Christianity. Now, where people really get most shocked about terrorism is our statement that God is technological. But this is where I was most excited in reading the works of Teilhard. As I'll show you in a moment, Teilhard saw that God is not like, you know, a man sitting up above with a beard. He saw that God is forward motion. God is forward, not above. God is ahead, not above. God is a relational process of evolution, technical evolution, biological evolution. So it's very, very consistent. And last but not least, that love is essential. Teilhard called love the glue that holds everything together. Terrorism feels the same way. So with that quick introduction to terrorism, now let me talk a little about Teilhard. So his full name, Pierre Teilhard du Chardon of France. He was a scientist and a Jesuit. He specifically was a paleontologist. A couple of little anecdotes. He discovered a species of shark that had gone extinct hundreds of millions of years ago. And that species of shark is named after him because of his discovery. He was in on the digs for the Peking man in China and was part of that early discovery. He had many life experiences, and he had a real zest for life. I'll just share a couple of, I think, his more interesting life experiences. As a Jesuit, he was, you know, pretty much like on the pacifist orientation. However, you know, boom, in the middle of his life came World War I. And, of course, being a pacifist does not mean that you're a coward or anything. It just means you don't want to, like, really kill other people. So he volunteered in World War I to be a litter carrier, a stretcher carrier. Now, if you've read anything about World War I, frankly, I could not really think of a more dangerous, scary occupation than to be a stretcher bearer in World War I. That was the war when people were in like different trenches, and anytime somebody climbed out of a trench and went running, person got like shot down, poison gas was all over the place. And this guy's like running out in the middle of the fields and picking up bodies and you know, running back with them to try to save them. I think that was also kind of a war where helmets were optional. So, I mean, it's just, you know, really astonishing the tremendous courage that Pierre Chardon had and survived that war and, of course, you know, saw a lot of terrible things. After World War I, he was assigned various places by the Jesuit hierarchy. And one of the places he was assigned was shortly before World War II was China. And he was allowed to do his paleontological thing there, working on the digs. And then World War II broke out. So he spent all of World War II in China, which I think is also, you know, very interesting kind of experience. He was, the next bullet I put there is that he was a prolific, what I call a rebel writer. I haven't seen that phrase used before for him, but I think that's most accurate. He wrote his views that God was the process of evolution, biological and technological process. It was a process. And that all of the notions of Christ and Christianity and God, if it was not reinterpreted in the context of modern science, it just didn't make any sense at all. I mean, this guy was a paleontologist. He discovered things that were hundreds of millions of years old. It was absurd to think that the world was 5,000 years old. I mean, that was like the most stupid thing he could imagine. So, you know, he told people these notions of, you know, love your neighbor, love each other, infinite love, you know, what he called Christogenesis. These are beautiful and true concepts, but we've got to apply them not in the context of Greek science when the Bible was written, but in the context of modern science when we know about Darwinian evolution, we know about the expansion of the universe. And that's really all that Teilhard did. He just took the teachings of Christ and situated them in modern science. And, well, the Jesuits did not like that. The Catholic Church liked it less. And they banned him from publishing anything at all during his life, which is too bad because he was a prolific writer. He wrote a lot. Well, my loving soulmate here, Bina, always says, if you're blocked one way, find another way. Find another way. And Teilhard found another way. There was a technology. How many of you are familiar with something that existed before Xerox machines called mimeograph machines? How many of you got high on the mimeograph ink? Just joking. But it did have a pungent odor to it. So there was kind of like a pre-mimeograph technology that friends of Teilhard's would take, and they would run off, you know, round and round and round and print off hundreds of copies of his essays and distributed them all throughout the world. And this is how Teilhard became very well known. In fact, people wrote books attacking him before he was even allowed to publish his own writings in a book. That's how well known he became from these rebel, or you could call it underground writing. I'd call it maybe guerrilla writing. He got his views out there. Now, a good thing was he had a very devoted secretary, and he got the permission of his Jesuit hierarchy to give all of his papers to his secretary upon his bodily death. And she did a bang-up job over the next 10 years of getting them all published in French. He wrote them in French, she was French. And now if you take a look on Amazon or something, you'll see in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there's a huge stream of translated versions of all of his writings into English. And they continue to come out, like I mentioned, this lady, professor at Georgetown, who I met. Teilhard also coined a couple of really cool ideas. One of them was the noosphere. The noosphere is based on the Latin word for mind is nous. And he believed that we were building a collective consciousness that surrounded the whole world, just like the plants exuded oxygen to create a biosphere. Humans exude consciousness to create a noosphere. Somewhat similar to what Arthur C. Clarke described we were building with communications technology as the nervous system of humanity. He also coined this concept of the omega point. The omega point is what those of us who have read Ray Kurzweil's books would sort of call the singularity. He said what's happening is like all of this technology is continuing to develop and get more and more advanced until it ultimately converges into something that will trump the stupid physics of the cosmos and create a forever state in the cosmos. Well, this is something that Ray Kurzweil has written in The Age of Spiritual Machines, that written in The Singularity is Near. And Teilhard was writing the same thing, except he calls it the omega point. And he also says that this omega point, all of Christ's mind and vision of infinite love comes true, that there will be infinite love for all, no pain, no suffering, blah, 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 at this point, which does not exist yet, and is 100% up to us with our technology and our capabilities and our efforts to create it. I looked at all of Teilhard's writings, and I realized that there were kind of 4 tenets of Teilhard that very much track the 4 tenets of Terasem. First of all, we say Terasem, life is purposeful. Teilhard said the purpose of life is to unite the cosmos via science and love. That's the number one point you'll get out of Teilhard. He believes that this will come to this omega point, Christogenesis, which is indistinguishable really from what Kurzweil would call the singularity. His second main tenet is that we are not physical beings. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So we should proceed as if limits did not exist. As Teilhard said, if people can come up and invent new genes, go for it. You know, use them, play around with the DNA and the biology that we have. These are all toolkits for us to play with. We say in Teresem, God is technological. Teilhard says God is an evolutionary process, forward, not upward. Our efforts are completing God. He loved technology. He thought it was absolutely awesome. Technology is evolution continued by other means. So this whole effort that we have of using technology to create techno-immortality, this is God. We are God with what we are doing at Alcor and other efforts to create techno-immortality. Teilhard said, love makes it all work. He envisioned love as a glue that holds together the more and more complex life forms that we see in the universe, holds together the larger and larger scales of organization and unity. Without love, everything falls apart. And with love, everything moves forward. So I've got like 4 slides expanding on each of these 4 tenets, and then I'll open up the session to any questions. So first, he calls God this directed evolutionary process. And this is, of course, where he got in trouble with the Jesuits. But you kind of really see this happening now. I recently spoke at a conference called the Singularity Conference, Human Soul and Machine. This is moving into the mainstream now. This was at a big museum in Baltimore. Teilhard and other people who are following Teilhard points out that atheism results from shackling God and faith to absurd notions that, you know, the world is 5,000 years old. There's this church of creation somewhere in, I think, Missouri, where there's like dinosaurs with Adam and Eve. And, you know, to Teilhard, the whole Adam and Eve thing was a big joke. He's a paleontologist. He realized that there was absolutely no way that this is how people evolved. And he said, basically, we've got to grow up, okay, and stop teaching these, you know, ridiculous stories that no credible person is really going to believe, and accept evolution into mainstream religion. So he believed that the growing atheism of the 20th century was a result of the traditional religions being locked into a 2,000-year-old mindset and having kind of like, oh, we missed the Renaissance, we missed the Enlightenment, we missed the telescope, we missed everything.